So after 1,000 miles, we made it to St. Martin. We enjoyed plenty of captain's hours and got to hang out with the leader of the pack, John Kretschmer. But I needed a place to stay, and I had not made any reservations. So in between lunches and bottles of wine, I contacted a number of the charter agencies, but I found that that was actually fruitless because of cost and the fact that I was alone. But it turns out if you look up Airbnb, you'll find under filters a selection for boat. And what I found was a number of boats that were for rent for a very reasonable price. And that's how I got a hold of my new friend Richard and his Beneteau 47. Well, here's part 2 to the St. Martin vacation. This is a Beneteau 473, a 47-foot Beneteau. And this is being rented to me by Richard, who's a British fella, who is a yacht delivery guy, but he lives on the yacht. And it's pretty clean. It's a 2005. It's got new rigging, he says. So I gotta shut this. It's pretty windy out, actually. It feels good. He said where we're anchored, there's a ton of turtles around here. Quite frankly, I haven't looked for them, but yeah, we're nicely at anchor. You can see the anchorage is filling up, and boy, there's a lot of catamarans out here. I guess a lot of people are going for catamarans because of the space. This is where Hurricane Irma hit, though, and you can actually see how flattened some of these buildings. Well, here we are back at the transom, and he left me a dinghy. And with that dinghy, I visited the town of Marigot, where we were anchored. And this is a very quaint town, lovely food and wine. But then, of course, there is the Dutch side, which needs to be visited if you're in St. Martin. Meanwhile, back in quiet Marigot, we have an opportunity at some more trade wind sailing. And fortunate for me, Richard likes to sail off the anchor. So at this point, we're just raising the mainsail. But as you can see, those battens are getting tangled up in the lazy jack. So the trick here is just to let the boat swing around with the wind. And as soon as the battens free up, you just give it a pull and wait for the next one to get tangled up. And repeat the cycle until you're all the way up. There we go. So I take out the slack in the main sheet, and Richard heads up to the bow to begin the process of raising the anchor. So after a little bit of time on the port tack, the tension on the anchor will swing us over onto a starboard tack. Incidentally, we do have the engine in idle just in case we need some forward power or some maneuverability within the anchorage. Port tack, and I think this is the last time we head back on the starboard tack before the anchor's away. And there's the anchor on deck, so we're off.
You said I got a point?
What's that?
You said I have a point a little bit?
Yeah, we want to go up the channel, so you can probably do take ship here past the start. Close there.
I can crank that if you want. Yeah.
Turns out the main halyard kept slipping in the clutch, and after fiddling with it for a little while, just wound up having to leave it. So during our sail we had a bit of slack at the top of the main. This will be a job for another day. And we're nicely on our first port tack of the trip. And now after several tacks, we're back on the port tack. And turns out we're just not able to point high enough to enter into that Grand Cas Harbor, so we're going to have to do another tack
get a
here.
better angle over here. We'll put it up on this one. There we go.
You want to film the landfall?
Yeah, just as we come in. Such a nice scene.
We've been sailing for weeks.
Yep. Finally, we found land.
First sight of land. What?
Land ho!
The gap you see up ahead is
that was
the entrance to the airport on the French side of St. Martin. And while anchored, we actually saw several small aircraft shoot that gap and land. The anchorage itself is bordered by several yellow buoys where anchoring is prohibited for fear of having your mast clipped by one of these low-flying planes.
Yeah, I'm watching that. We're actually pointing straight for that at the moment, so we're going to do a final tack before we get there.
All right.
We get a better idea about how far we need to go then. There's a few boats out with sails up.
Yeah. These little guys, they sort of hug the coast coming in.
Yeah. Motor sailing probably. This is quite a popular place place. I didn't
Nice little beach.
probably another way. I prefer Friars Bay, which is just around that point. And it's tucked away, and it's a lovely place to spend the weekend.
And Richard's talking about Grand Cause Harbor, which is renowned for its
Okay, let it go.
restaurants and beach bars.
Right on, right on. Let it go.
Yep.
It's cool.
All right, tacking.
Well, we made it into Grand Cause Harbor. Fantastic views, and we were joined by this Swan 70 quad spreaders. We got to see him leave later on in the day. After a quick swim and a modest lunch, we were back on our way to Marigot.
All right, downwind sailing on the way back to Marigot Harbor. We're just doing this under the head sail alone. And I'll give you a view of what we're looking at. You can see we came up, tack, up, tack, up, tack into Grand Case, and now we're just gonna run downwind and hopefully cut off some of the corners there.
And there's that big old swan off in the distance. Seems to be making good time out in the trades. Such a beautiful sight. Well, we made it back to Marigot without incident and just had a wonderful sail, and then had a great evening to sit and reflect on a fantastic trip.